Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts, where we discuss all things UGA football recruiting related. And there was a big visit weekend for the G-Day weekend. I'm Blaine Gilmer here with Jed May and Trent Smallwood. Jed, Trent, how we doing? How we doing after this Easter weekend?
Great, man. Got a lot of candy to go through. So doing great.
chocolate bunny, the huge chocolate bunny. I mean,
I'm
that's
not a
always
chocolate guy, man. I'm more like a sour, like a Skittles kind of guy. So
finding all the Skittles. Man.
So did you go Easter egg hunting, Jed?
Yep. But it hurts. See, I'm tall, so like it hurts to bend over and pick them up off the ground. So it's harder when you're.
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
That might just be lazy.
Jed's actually, I mean, if y'all seen Jed in person, Jed's like, he's what up there, 6'3", 6'4". Yep. So he may actually be dressed up as the bunny and some at the mall, like moonlighting. Roddy's got to raise the pay a little bit, so Jed doesn't have to dress up as the Easter bunny anymore during spring. But no, we had a lots of coverage for you leading into G-Day. I was there taking pictures of the guys who were visiting. Had a nice gallery out there for the people on UGA Sports, the Vault over there. Yet another reason to be a member of the Vault, and you get to get your questions answered each and every Monday night on here. We've got Vault questions lined up, but Trent, I think we need to start off with a little recruiting that Georgia did from out of the portal back to its own team with Amarius Mims making it official. Roddy was first one to have that news over on the dog vent on Sunday. Look at Roddy working on Easter, no less, and getting that news out there. And then, but Amarius Mims coming back.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big pickup just for depth, and I think he's going to compete at several different positions on that offensive line before it's all said and done. I think that's one of those situations where you're not exactly happy where you're at, but then you go and you find out that other places might not be better than where you're at. So he had an opportunity to go official visit Florida State and was there for a couple of days, and then over the weekend he was back in Athens and decided to stick with the Dogs, and I think that's big for Georgia moving forward.
Jed, your thoughts on Mims going portaling and coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like Trent said, it's one of those the grass isn't always greener kind of situations. I will say, I don't know, like spending a lot of time on the Florida State message board today because why not? There's a lot of people there saying that basically what Georgia fans say about Texas A&M is like, oh, it's NIL and NIL, which is, it's funny to see Georgia on the other side of that. Personally, I don't know. I mean, I don't have it. This isn't based on inside information or anything. I don't think it was a case of Georgia throwing a huge NIL, bag at Amarius Mims just because that hasn't been Georgia's trademark. And you think about Mims going from Georgia to Florida State, he could be theoretically getting NIL as a starter and one of the top players on that team. But coming back to Georgia, who's ponying up an NIL package for a guy that didn't start last year and is far from a guarantee to start this year? So I think it was just one of those things, like Trent said, where you don't really realize how good you have it, even if you're not getting the playing time you want, until you see what's going on at some other places.
Yeah, I made the analogy just for people who know. May not know, I played football in high school, and then I wasn't good enough to go be a big D1 player. But these high schools around here in Georgia, really nice. Okay, there's some of these really nice high schools, really nice facilities. Well, I went to go on some of these visits to these D2 and D3 schools. I was like, wow, this is way worse than what I played in high school. So I imagine Amarius Mims, to Trent's point, kind of did the same things. He goes down there to Tallahassee and he's looking around at these facilities and what's going on in this program. And he's like, man, I got to get back to Athens. So that's kind of what I envisioned happened there. Thought it was hilarious. He pulled up the ensemble that Mims was wearing going into the visit with Florida State. I mean, looked like he just came from playing a pickup basketball game over there, and they're rolling out the red carpet, and you can just tell it seemed like one wanted way more than the other one. So very, very interesting dynamic there, Trent. And that outfit cracked me up, man. That was funny stuff.
Yeah, and he did have a previous relationship with that coach over at Florida State, and I think that's what kind of led to the visit. But
Brett Weimer on YouTube says the man hug scared Amarius off.
Yeah, he had a relationship with the offensive line coach over there, but I think when you get over there and you see when they kind of lay out the blueprint of what they're all about, and you see what Georgia's all about. They're putting offensive tackles in the NFL. They're putting guys all around, as we'll see in the next 9 or 10 days in the NFL. So, like I said, it's not even if Amarius is a 1-year starter, like Broderick very well could be next year. He could be a 1-year starter and then go first, second round in the draft. But Amarius could be right behind him, and you just got to be patient in these situations. And I think he realized that when going on that visit.
And Broderick Jones probably wasn't expected to play nearly as much as he ended up playing last year, but injuries happen in football. It's a collision sport. It's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. When you got men that are hitting each other at the rate and size that these guys are, injuries are going to happen. So even if you're in that top 6 or 7 there for Georgia, good chance you're going to find yourself on the field at some point during the year.
I still think there's a situation where he's going to cross train at guard too, because guard has been one of the weaker points for Georgia's offensive line, and still looking for some guys there. Tate Ratledge is back, and you got Warren Erickson still back, but still looking for some guys there, and I think you'll see some cross trading there.
Wait, Jed, where do we happen to know where exactly is Tate Ratledge right now in terms of the rehab and things like? I've been focused all on recruiting. I hadn't kept up with the team side as much on it. But is he? I know that's a tough injury to come back from. I think it was a Liz Frank injury there in the foot. So that's tough, especially when you're a 300-pound guy.
I know his hair is in midseason form after seeing him the other day on the field. But no, it's like you mentioned, when you got a big guy and it's a foot injury, especially it's kind of like a mid-foot thing from what I understand. Me and Roddy had a nice medical discussion last when I talked to him a week ago about just how blood flow can affect how things heal and stuff. So it's one of those things where it just takes a while to come back from, but it seems like maybe if not by summer, then by the first of fall camp, he should be back ready to roll, because that'd be pretty much a year removed from that injury. But like you said, he's got to earn. I mean, those guard spots are interesting. I mean, we're talking about Amarius Mims. Who's to say he doesn't win one of those starting guard jobs? I mean, Xavier Trust is a converted tackle that's in there playing guard right now. So, Kirby Smart has said a lot. He wants to get the best 5 linemen and, do with that, let the chips fall where they may. And Amarius could fall into that group, or like you said, one of the top 7 and be
Jerry Bennett says Mims would rather portal to Bishop Sycamore than Florida State. So, people having a lot of fun at Florida State's expense today. So it's not been a great day for the people of Seminole Nation down there, Trent.
It's been a rough 3 or 4 months for them, with Hunter choosing Jackson State, and now you got Mims all but locked up supposedly to Florida State, and signed a nil deal on Wednesday or Thursday, and then to go to just announce or not really announce, but Roddy break the news that he's coming back to Georgia. It's been a tough couple of blows for them over the past 3 or 4 months, and they're not really high on the Norvell train right now.
Absolutely. Jordan Harris says it's been a rough 9 years. So it's not getting any better for Florida State.
It's been rough. It's been rough down there since they ate crab legs. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, yeah, you ain't kidding. So if Florida State gets to continue to be the butt of the jokes, we appreciate everybody who's on here watching us on YouTube right now. Go ahead and drop your comments in. As you see, we'll put them up here. We'll be happy to answer questions there on the YouTube channel. as well. So put those in the comments, and we'll be glad to interact with you. But other than Mims returning, I guess the big news that I'll put down here at the bottom of the screen is 4-star edge defender Gabriel Harris, who's now at Valdosta High School, commits to Georgia this weekend after G-Day. 12 o'clock on Easter, man. That was tough for me, getting out of the church in the parking lot. Boom, a commitment. Got to get that story posted. I mean, we had it ready for a couple of weeks here on Gabriel Harris. Knew it was coming. We just didn't know what time. Didn't think the man would be doing it right when we were about to, carve into some ham and stuff like that. But who knows, man? It's Georgia never stops recruiting. So, guys, go ahead and give your thoughts on Gabriel Harris, 4-star outside linebacker, edge defender prospect that commits to Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him at the Georgia Elite Classic back in December, and he was a game. It was one of those things where there was the 23 class played against the 22 class, and he dominated like all day. He had, I think, 3.5 sacks. He had a couple other quarterback hurries and hits. I mean, he was the best player on the field, it looked like. So, and then Trent, me and you saw him at the Under Armour camp in Atlanta a couple months ago, and he really talked about how he was building that bond with Coach Uribe, said he was talking to him every day. And since then, we've kind of thought that Georgia was kind of taking the lead, speaking of which, Harris, speaking of Florida State, a guy that used to be committed to Florida State, and now
body blows, man. Just body blows.
4 months, it seemed like Georgia has always been a factor. And then ever since Coach Uribe got to Athens, he really turned up the heat and, locked up the commitment yesterday.
Yeah, I really like what they're getting in him. We've talked about the outside linebacker position where they were low on depth last year. They landed a couple guys in last year's class with Michael and, Marvin Jones Jr. But you still need to continue to reload in that class every single year. And he's a guy that can come in and, he's going to be that stand-up guy, can also put his hand in the dirt, excellent pass rusher. Watching his film, he's not too shabby against the run either. So just an all-around good football player on the edge. And, he's ranked, I think, 59th in this class up to this point. So it's a big addition, especially early in the spring when we wasn't expecting anything to happen for a month or so.
Absolutely. And it kind of seems like it's been in a holding pattern, as you just said there, Trent, with some of the big domino. Arch Manning is the one that everybody's kind of waiting to fall. And there's going to be a lot of people think that's just about quarterback. No, as there's a lot of ripple effects that are going to come off of that. But I think Gabe Harris, fits that mold that Uribe himself has really kind of tried to establish here with the guys that he's recruiting. To Jed's point earlier, it seems like every guy he's offered or really went hard after so far since he's arrived in Athens is in that 6'4" to 6'6" range. Tremendous wingspan, just true edge rushers. So it's something that Harris fits the mold, and he'll be a great addition to this class for UGA. A couple quick YouTube questions real quick here before we get going. Jordan Harris asks, how did the Hykeem visit go? We will get more on that here in just a minute because we have a vault question that goes with it. But just going to say this. I saw him spending a lot of time with Fran Brown and with Brian McClendon. And I just if that tells you anything, those two guys are about as well respected as it comes on the recruiting trail. So couldn't go wrong there. And do have another couple notes to add here in just a little bit, but I think overall it went well. And then a little comment from Christopher Black. He said, I thought it was funny that some rival fans thought Brock Bowers had changed his number to 4. That's how well that Oscar Delp performed. Speaking of recruiting, guys, people asked us so many times about this 2022 class, who's somebody that you could see making an impact early. And my continual answer was Oscar Delp, because of how good of a route runner he is, how physical he is after the catch. And he displayed both those things in the spring game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something Kirby's talked about a lot, where he got a lot of reps this spring because of Darnell Washington being out, Brock Bowers being out. So it'll be interesting to see if this spring has him worked into more of a rotation spot once the season comes around, because obviously Brett Seether is around as well. Or, I mean, there's still is Darnell Washington still going to be on campus in the fall? We don't know that. So there's a lot of interesting things that could develop at that tight end position. But when you have your first G Day as an early enrollee and you lead everybody in yards and in catches, it's certainly a good way to introduce yourself to the Georgia fans and your coaches as well.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely looked good. I was watching. I watched bits and pieces of it, but on Saturday when it was live, caught it in the third. I was like, "Who's that number 4?" Because I didn't have the volume up. It was my daughter's first birthday. I was just trying to catch a little bit of it, and I ended up seeing it was Oscar Depp. It definitely
priorities, right? We're trying to
trying to work out the priorities, but he definitely doesn't look like a tight end. He kind of looks like that. He looked about 220, 225. I don't know what he weighs in at.
Yeah, but, I think he's right at 225. I think is what they got him. 6'4", 225 as an 18-year-old. I mean.
He doesn't look like your Darnell Washington. He doesn't look like your Eric Gilbert, but he does look like somebody that can make plays out of the slot or, out of an H-back position or something like that. So I think there's going to be playing time for him in the fall, depending on, I think whether or not Darnell Washington leaves or not. I think you're going to see some. He might be one of those guys that's too good to keep off the field. So it'll be interesting how how the Georgia offense uses all of these tight ends, because I mean you have 4 legit ones, and I did hear this on the I think McElroy and them announcing the game, and I think I'd go to a lot of 14 personnel if I was Georgia. So
yeah, and then Joe Tessitore came back with, well, you're going to hear A.D. Mitchell and Kearis Jackson and all those guys trying to get out of town if you do the 14. So it is a balancing act with this roster management now. And, but you do have to play to the strengths of your team, and I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Georgia in heavy 13 personnel throughout this season. So I guess that is all the stuff off the open right there. If you guys have YouTube questions, keep adding them in, but we're going to go ahead and jump into our vault questions here. And our first one comes from who else, Jed? It's old Pine Tree chiming in.
Trusty Pine Tree. Aside from Justyn, Rhett, and Gabriel Harris, which 2023 target did we, Georgia, make the best impression on this past weekend?
Yeah, I'll go first. One that I talked to that I know that the needle was moved tremendously by the visit was Tyree Adams, who is a 6'6", 282-pound offensive tackle. He received an offer from Georgia, already had offers from Texas A&M, and LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. So he's getting a lot of attention, really skyrocketed. Listed as a 3-star right now. I think he'll end up as a high 4-star before this recruitment is over with. Talked to not only Tyree, but talked to some people around Tyree that I really trust, and he is very, very impressed by what Georgia brought to the table on that G-Day visit. So that's definitely one that was impressed. Jed, anybody you talked to that you think Georgia made some ground with?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him too much, but you look at a guy like Aiden Williams, a 23 receiver out of Mississippi. He's a Rivals 250 guy. Not only came into Athens, came away with an offer as well. And I texted him Saturday night, and his direct quote, let me pull it up so I can we ensure accuracy here. He said, wow, really? I'm at a loss for words. So clearly that offer from the Bulldogs really, resonated with him and that kind of thing. So those kind of guys like that are – when you have a guy come into G-Day and leave with an offer and get a game day-ish anyway experience, that's a lot to take in at one time for these guys, and I'm sure it really moved the needle for him, and Georgia's probably on his radar now. And
then Trent, another guy that was in town, Hykeem Williams, like I said, I mentioned before when the guy listener on YouTube asked about Hykeem and how the visit went. He was spending time with Kristen Miller and Marvin Jones Jr. and Dylan Bell, sitting with them the entire time during the G-Day scrimmage that I saw. So definitely, I think Hykeem knows how high of a priority he is for Georgia.
Yeah, and the big thing here is he just keeps showing up. I mean, this is visit after visit after visit, and he's got several other top schools, but you keep showing up at one place, and that relationship and that everything with that is going to continue to grow. And I think Georgia sits in an excellent position for Hykeem, and another guy that I think helped was guys like Caden McDonald that was also in town, and but I think Georgia's done a very good job of getting guys on campus like Jayden Wayne and guys like that. You just get those guys on campus, and as long as you can get them on campus, I think the relationship continue to build, and that's one thing that Kirby Smart's done a good job of outside of the COVID year.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned Jayden Wayne earlier. Spoke to Jayden Wayne, 5-star from Tacoma, Washington. He was out here for yet another visit. Like you said, he's a guy that continues to show up, just like Hykeem Williams. I think it's his third, fourth visit out to Athens, all the way from Tacoma, Washington. That's not an easy trip, and it is an unofficial visit. It's not a official visit. So Jayden Wayne, 5-star in every sense of the word. He totally fits that mold. I mean, he's 6'5", 245. Can really run. At one point, Georgia was recruiting him as a tight end and an outside linebacker, much in the frame of Rico Walker, and now more so on the defensive side of the ball. But you got Uzo Deribe, who had a relationship with him at TCU. His recruitment with Georgia had kind of gone dormant when Dan Lanning, who was his primary recruiter, had was going through that coaching change and all that kind of stuff to Oregon. But then the word that he used with me when I talked to him I guess a little over a month ago, was that Uzo Deribe kind of brought life back to that recruitment, and they're talking all the time now. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jayden Wayne. Alabama, LSU, Miami, USC, all the perennial powers in college football and the traditional powers are all in on this one. So Jayden Wayne is definitely one to watch. But that's some of the guys who were impressed by their visits this weekend. And he said that meeting Uzo Deribe and seeing what he's doing at Georgia was very impressive as well. But, that's all the guys who kind of probably got the most impressed this weekend of note. Jed, we got another question here.
Yeah, from Dr. Diggler. Oscar Delp looked great on Saturday in the G-Day game. How do he and Pierce Spurlin compare and contrast? For extra credit, put Bowers in the same conversation going into their senior year in high school.
All right, so if we got to compare Oscar Delp, Pierce Spurlin, so Oscar Delp going into last year, Pierce Spurlin going into this year, and Brock Bowers going into 2 years ago into the same category and same conversation, how would we compare and contrast them? So I'm going to say that Bowers was different than both, because Bowers was a former linebacker and running back. He played with more of more of that linebacker mentality of everything, even though we know that Bowers now, we see him streaking down the sideline or over the middle and pulling away from people. He is really fast. He didn't look like tremendously fast because he's just so physical in how he plays the game, kind of deceptive speed and how he went out. I think the thing that you see with Oscar Delp was I think Oscar Delp looked the most smooth of all of them. You know what I'm saying? The most polished. And to me, Pierce Spurlin is just totally different because he's like a baby giraffe running around on the field out there. He's so tall and so long, but he runs routes really well. It's just hard to compare and say who's better than the other, but they all do, I think, have 3 different distinct styles of play.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, like you said on Pierce, he's so different than even just the other two. I mean, he's basically just a big receiver. Like, he runs routes well. He obviously catches well.
Well, and Pierce is a really good basketball player too.
Yeah. I mean, he is a big receiver. I mean, he's going to be flexed out so much, especially, early in his career before he really bulks up and adds a lot of weight. So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't in the recruiting world when Bowers came in, but Delp just looks like more of maybe what you're saying tight ends nowadays. He's obviously got the body and the frame to block, but he's fluid and smooth enough to be a threat in the passing game. I think Spurlin is they think he can block, obviously, if they're recruiting him as a tight end, but he's just so much in that mold of just a big, tall, physical receiver that he's almost, a tight end in name only, just about.
And Trent, he's 6'6", 235 pounds. I mean, he looks skinny, but the dude is 6'6", pushing 6'7". I mean, he's a tall dude.
Yeah, and like you talk about, they're all very similar in some aspects. They're very different in others. And you mentioned Pierce; he could be split out. I think he is probably. I don't know this off the top of my head, but he might be the slowest of the three. But he also might be the longest of the three with his catch radius and stuff. I think both Bowers and Depp can be a little bit more explosive when they get the ball in their hands, but I think maybe Spurwin can make the tougher catches across the middle. They all three bring such a different skill set. It'd be fun to watch them three together after these current three are together.
Yeah, the point is the future of the tight end room, and then add Lawson Lucky on top of that in this class of 2023. The future of this tight end room is just it's really ridiculous. I mean, Todd Hartley, I think there's a reason he was holding up his drink cup with his agency on there on his back porch on an Instagram post not too long ago, because that man's got to be getting paid because he's recruiting his tail off.
I mean, legitimately, you could have Bowers has got to come back next year either way because he's a sophomore this coming year. So you could legitimately have Delp, Spurwin, Bowers,
Lucky.
I don't know what happens with Gilbert after this year, whether or not he does go pro. I don't know. It depends on what kind of year he has. I mean, you could have 6 guys. It could go from 4 to 6 next year.
Yeah,
just insane.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. And then they may, if that was the case, they may make Spurlin a full-time receiver or something. I mean, it's just nuts how loaded Georgia is at tight end. Green Timber has one for us, Jed.
Yeah, it says, "Are we getting Young?" Being Richard Young, I assume, back on campus anytime soon.
I thought he meant Bryce.
Bryce. Hey, Bryce enters the transfer portal. Saw that plenty on April 1st for April Fool's Day. But no, Richard Young is someone who will be back on Georgia's campus at some point for an official visit because Georgia is wide. I personally don't think Georgia is the favorite for Richard Young right now. I do think they are right there at it. I mean, very close. I think it's Florida, Alabama, Miami, Georgia, and Ohio State. Those 5 all really vying neck and neck for Richard Young right here. So I think he'll be back, but I don't know when that would be. I mean, it could be this summer. He could elect to wait till this fall. It just depends, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what. I think this one's going to be one of those situations where it goes late in the process. So you could see him back on campus, later this spring, summer, but I think it'll go into the fall, and you might see the official visits happen then.
Yeah, we see. I see some of these YouTube questions. They tie into some of these other questions. So when we get to them, I'll pull them up. Y'all keep submitting the YouTube questions and the comments. We really appreciate it. Also, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, guys. We've grown to be, I believe now, the largest UGA YouTube channel out there. So it's right there at it, if not eclipsed it yet. So we're getting close to that mark, and all your subscriptions, which are free on YouTube, really help out with that. So we really appreciate that. Hit the like button as well. We would really, really appreciate that. Okay, so let's see what we have next on the docket here. UGA RPHCO. We've got, how do you think TJ Shanahan's visit to UGA helped us, Georgia, in his recruitment? I know it'll be difficult to get him out of Texas. With our staff, there's always a chance. Okay, so full disclosure, I called TJ Shanahan like 5 minutes before we came on to this show. I'd been trying to get in touch with him since after the visit. He finally picked up. The young man was in a Chipotle, eating as any good lineman should over there. So providing that he doesn't have terrible gut rot in about an hour after this show is over with, I'm going to be calling him to get more of the details. But I do know, Jed, that this was his first time getting a chance to meet Stacy Searles, and obviously we like the questioner said, it is going to be difficult to get him out of the state of Texas because not only Texas A&M and Texas, but also Texas Tech is heavily involved there. But Georgia getting him on campus, I think that was a welcome surprise to many.
I think you've got at least 3 hours for Chipotle gets to him, so you should be good. But yeah, and he was here for multiple days too, right? Because we saw him on campus, posting videos from on campus on Friday night, and it's one of those things where he gets here, and kind of like you mentioned with Jayden Wayne, where Chidera Uzodiribe breathed new life into that recruitment. A guy gets on campus and meets a position coach like TJ Shanahan did with Stacy Searles, and that could alter what he thinks of Georgia because obviously he's met Kirby Smart and Todd Monk and all those guys. So getting him on campus for such a big game was it's never not a big deal, right? When you get a guy of his caliber on campus, especially when we've talked about the offensive line. There's a lot of guys Georgia's in on, but not necessarily leading for right now when you look at the 23 offensive line. So getting a guy of TJ Shanahan's caliber on campus for such a big event as G-Day is definitely a big deal.
Yeah, Trent, I know this, that if I'm an evaluator and I'm involved in trying to push whatever kind of recruitment resources I have towards people, TJ Shanahan is who I'm going all after because he's just nasty on the field. I mean, plays not as nasty meaning a good player, nasty meaning he literally plays with a mean streak.
Yeah, I mean, he would look good blocking for Arch Manning, but
Trent, look at Trent stirring the pot here. I mean, he's going to give our guys over here. Who was it? Just I saw. He's going to give Christopher Black. He's saying, "Will Georgia land either Arch Manning or Dylan Raiola?" You just heard it. Trent Smallwood says Arch coming to
Trent
Georgia.
Smallwood submits Arch Manning Futurecast live.
How many tweets will be out tonight that say that? Just wait.
Trent Smallwood says Arch Manning to Georgia.
All right. I didn't say where he'd be blocking for him at. But anyway, yeah, he's the real deal. I mean, he kind of fits that. A little bit more talented, but Ernest Green, that's why I think they're both really talented, can play different positions on the offensive line, and he would be a big addition and be one that I think Georgia really works on. Getting them on campus is big. Getting them out of Texas is going to be hard, but continuing to get them on campus will be what Georgia strives for moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, an official visit with TJ Shanahan would be huge. If they can get him back for an official, that'd be a big deal. That was his first time getting to meet Stacy Searles. So, we'll see how that impacts. But the person that the coach that you need to pay attention to in this recruitment is Dale McGee. I mean, he's really been the consistent thing in TJ Shanahan's recruitment. And when I was on the phone with TJ just a while ago, he said, "Hey, Dale McGee's my guy. Even though he's not my position coach, that's the guy that I really enjoy talking to over for Georgia." So anytime Dale McGee's involved, I don't count Georgia out at all. So it'll definitely be one to keep an eye on for sure. Mainstay Scuffletown has a couple questions here, Jed.
Yep, number one, chances on Deuce Robinson, and who do you like for 2 running backs? And then also thoughts on Georgia having the number 1 class, or where do we think Georgia ends up?
Okay, Trent, you're Mr. Class projection guy. What do you think it takes for Georgia to get up to the number 1 class? We'll go with that the second half of the question first.
It's too damn early to be talking about rankings. But isn't Texas Tech or somebody like that ranked first right now? I mean,
Texas Tech has the number 1 recruiting
class
in the country.
But I'll say this: you land Arch Manning, go a long way in being number 1 class because you got Georgia and Alabama in for them. If Georgia or Alabama lands Arch Manning, that will go a long ways in being that number 1 class because number 1, you're going to get guys to come with them, and number 2, you're one of the number 1 player in the country, which by far is the most points you get. So I think Arch Manning will be one of the factors in landing a number one class. I think Georgia's always going to be solidified in that top 5, top 3 group, but landing that number one class often requires you to land one of the top 3 or 4 players in the country, and if not, you're going to have to land 5 or 6 others 5-star players. So I think Arch Manning go a long ways in being number one.
Well, I think if Arch Manning were to commit to Georgia, you would see in short order Hykeem Williams, Justice Haynes, TJ Shanahan, and maybe even Madden Sanker go ahead and pull the trigger on coming to Georgia. Like, I think that's how influential the recruitment of Arch Manning is and could be to this class. So to your point, I do think that's definitely a big piece of that number one class. They have a decent shot at it, I think. Chances on Deuce, referring to Deuce Robinson, I still think that hasn't changed from back when he visited a couple of weeks ago now, Jed.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes down to it, baseball is kind of the wait and see mode there. How high is he going to get drafted, that kind of stuff to see. And Georgia already has 2 tight ends in the class. So what happens there at that position, who leaves, that kind of stuff. And then Jed, 2 running backs. I don't know how likely it is that you see Haynes and Young both land in the class. I think it's a either or situation. And then if Georgia goes for a second running back, it's more of a Welch or Wilcox or somebody along those lines. What are your thoughts on the running back position?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Because somebody asked on the show, it was last week, week before, would Georgia take Haynes and Young? Absolutely, in a heartbeat, they would take Justice Haynes and Richard Young. But it doesn't seem like it wouldn't seem like they're both going to wind up in the same place. So if you put a gun to my head right now, I would probably guess Justice Haynes and Jamarian Wilcox, because Wilcox is one of those guys like we've talked about with Hykeem Williams. He keeps showing up on campus. I mean, I saw him at practice when we got some practice viewing. I was like, man, Jamarian Wilcox, he was just here. He had been in Athens the week or weekend before. So I think Georgia ends up, if it went, because correct me, he doesn't yet have a Georgia offer, right, Blaine? Is that right?
Yeah, not yet. It has not been offered yet.
If and when Georgia offers him, I think he would end up in the class. And then Justice Haynes, I still think Georgia, Haynes's flirtation with Florida is well chronicled on this year website, but I think Georgia still leads for him. He was at G-Day as well. So I think Georgia ends up getting Haynes, then I think they get Wilcox as well.
Yeah, and then another one to keep an eye on too is DJ Braswell out of Washington County, right? Because he visited Georgia, I believe, last week, and he plays now for Robert Edwards at Waco, who's obviously a famous Georgia running back, Robert Edwards, who is now, like I said, the head coach down there in Sandersville at Washington County High School. And DJ is a guy who's seeing his recruitment really spike up as of late. South Carolina and Alabama have both offered. He didn't leave that Georgia visit with an offer, but I think that may be just because, Jed, right now that Del McGee doesn't just hand out offers like crazy, and I think they're so heavily invested in trying to land Justice Haynes and Richard Young at the moment.
Yeah, and Trent, this is something you mentioned a couple of weeks ago too. With a lot of these in-state kids, especially, coaches want to see them come up and camp in the summer and see how that goes. Because how many offers did we see go out to guys last summer with the CJ Maddens of the world and Dylan Bell and Cole Spear, guys like that come to camp at Georgia and then they leave with an offer and obviously end up in the class. So I think that could be when you see a lot of movement with these guys in terms of offers. And then, if the mood so strikes them, once the offer comes, they commit shortly after.
Yeah, I think it's easier, and I said that we're going in-state prospects, their mindsets, right? It's kind of easier to move away from a kid that is not locally in-state. And I think that's the reason why a lot of they want a lot of the in-state guys to come and give an offer, because, you can give those offers just to kind of give, get the relationship started for these out-of-state guys, these guys all the way out in West Coast, stuff like that. It's kind of more easily you can easily move away from those guys if you don't want to. It's hard to move away from the guys in state. You're seeing those guys,
and that's partially because of the high school coaches too. They're going to be like, hey, well, why? I'm going to tell all my guys, crap on y'all if y'all are going to come and give a shady offer that doesn't mean anything, that kind of stuff.
You're not really burning a bridge when you're outside the state unless you're like pulling his offer on signing day. But you are burning a bridge for these in-state guys. You don't want to burn bridges in the state of Georgia where you're trying to recruit every single year. So I think that's the reason why you see a lot of later offers in the state, unless it's a guy like Justice Haynes or something like that. But a lot of these 3-star guys, they want to come up and camp and let them earn the offers over the summer, see what they got, and see if an offer happens in.
Yeah, here on UGAsports Rumors versus Facts, I'm Blaine Gilmer with Jed Man, Trent Smallwood. Like I said, subscribe, like, turn on notifications, submit your comments and questions in YouTube like David Williams just did here. He said, great evening, dogs. I do really enjoy the show, fellas. Plenty of info for all dog fans interested in the best time of the year before the season starts, recruiting, baby. We appreciate that, David. We appreciate everybody listening. So, like I said, go ahead and submit those questions and comments. We'll be happy to answer them as we go through our vault comments here. We got Pine Tree coming back for another one, Jed.
Yeah, we're going with the under the radar prospect here. The current status of the Arch Manning recruitment.
And Pine Tree mentions he just mentions Arch at least 102 times a day. So
Pine Tree, a pretty landmark on campus. Like that's where everybody goes. It's you walk through it when you graduate and stuff. It's a cool landmark, I guess.
Yeah, hey, I would be it. There'll be lots of NIL. I mean, could that be a consideration? Are the NIL opportunities of the Arch and Arch Manning on T-shirts and all that kind of stuff? I mean,
you could build a pine tree right next to it.
He could
just put one in the ground right there.
He could put a restaurant. He could put a restaurant not far from the Arches and say Arches at the Arches or something like that. I mean, there's NIL opportunities abound for that young man in Athens. So here's what I say. I say that all of these things that put percentages on where a guy's going to go are a load of crap. Okay, and here's why that's a load of crap. Because no one knows except for the Manning family and Arch Manning. Guess what? They don't even know at this point right now because they're truly doing their due diligence on trying to evaluate the situation from A to Z. This is a family that is worth multi-million dollars, and they do so because of their business acumen. They do so because of the class which they handle themselves with as a family. So I think that there will be no stone left unturned in this recruitment. Having said that, Georgia, to a person, from the high school coach to people directly involved in the recruitment, very close to the situation, have said that there's not been one moment in this recruitment where there's been like, oh, we messed up here, or we maybe shouldn't have done that type of thing. Georgia's hit all the marks in this recruitment, Trent. And even I put in a post today, even the fact that Matt Luke, who the family is very close with, is still running around. One, he's retired, but he's staying in Athens because he loves Athens so much, and he's still running around wearing Georgia Bulldog gear. I don't think that hurts the chances of Arch Manning at all. No, it doesn't. I think there's a 37.4% chance he lands here, and no, I think a lot of that. Nobody really knows where he's going right now. I think a lot of people get a feel and talking to sources and stuff like that. But this is going to be a very and they're not going to let anything leak necessarily. I mean, he's going to tell his high school coach how he feels. He's going to tell other people how he feels, and you're going to get some vibes off of that. But nobody can really, say, hey, he's 90% coming to Georgia. He's going to take his visits. But no, I think Georgia sits in a very good situation. I think that Georgia has a lot the family likes. I think Georgia has a lot to offer in terms of the campus and the football team and the coaching staff and everything above. But
I think other schools do too, but I do think Georgia sits in a very good position moving into the spring. That being said, I'm not predicting Arch Manning to Georgia right this minute. Like,
wait, you already did.
All right, well, whatever. Just whatever.
No, but Jed, one thing that you hear constantly from those who are very close to this situation is how important the college experience is to the Manning family. Because as I said, NIL not a determining factor. They don't need money. They don't need money. That's not how this is going to go down. It's going to be about development. It's going to be about the college experience, is what I've been told by people in the know. As the most recent graduate from the University of Georgia, would you care to expound upon the college experience of Athens?
I don't think he got the full experience.
Yeah, give me a minute. Let me try to remember.
No, he might have, because he can't even bend down to pick up Easter eggs. So he might have got the full experience.
Yeah. No, it's like you said, it's there's the downtown, there's the restaurants, there's the campus is beautiful. It's obviously great academically, right? With like you mentioned, Blaine, with the business side of things that the Mannings have done, like Arch could do that if he's interested in that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's a full, like you said, there's the football side of things, and even the facilities could kind of bleed into the college experience, right? Because you're going to spend a lot of time in the facility when you're not in Sanford Stadium on Saturdays. But at this point, I think to this point in this recruitment, it's been about schools trying to position themselves to be there at the end, right? Because nothing's leaking, no true favorites, whatever. But Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss to a lesser extent. I mean, those are the schools that have done enough to this point to kind of be here at the end. And now we go through this spring, and there's official visits and maybe game day visits this fall if it goes that long, and everyone's going to have their sort of last crack or two to really bring this thing home. And Georgia's got just as good a shot as anybody.
No doubt. And now we have our first question from the inaugural member of the Trent Smallwood fan club. It's KB Doggo 8, says, big fan of Trent Smallwood. Guys, is there a possibility of us waiting on a QB commit before we take a running back commit? I just think everything is kind of waiting right now, except maybe on the defensive side of the ball. I think you're very unlikely to see an offensive commit before you see Arch Manning commit somewhere. That's what I believe, because I think and we got this question coming next, but I think the total approach could change if Arch Manning goes somewhere else. But what do you guys think? Offense kind of on hold, but especially running back and receiver before Arch Manning commits?
I honestly don't see any offensive player that might commit. There might be one pop, but I think it could go into after Arch commits. You got the Justice Haynes, you got the Madden
Hykeem
Williams, but those three are recruitments that could go into the fall. So we'll see. I mean, there could be an offensive player jump on before Arch. I don't think that they're all necessarily just waiting on Arch, but I think you'll start to see a lot trickle down if Arch does choose UGA.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not necessarily a case of Georgia waiting on a running back. I just think that's how this class is shaping up with everybody waiting on Arch. Not necessarily Georgia wanting to get quarterback figured out first. It's just that's how it is when you've got these receivers Georgia's going after, and then the skill players. And Blaine, you've talked about before, if a tight end leaves, Georgia could go after another tight end. I mean, there's all these different situations and
a lot could change. I mean, we discussed earlier about the camp offers. I mean, a lot could change over the summer when you get these guys on campus in June, and maybe a running back offer goes out. Maybe a wide receiver offer goes out, and maybe you see a commitment happen then. So a lot can change over the summer You see a lot of those commitments. So.
Who that added his 2 cents to the college experience. He simply said the chicks. So we'll leave that alone for who dat right there. But
Arch wouldn't have no problem with that. So
no problem. Ole Miss treated him well with that one from his Instagram post over there. He enjoyed his trip to the Grove for sure.
He wasn't in Lane Kiffin's neighborhood, was he?
Hey, Lane Kiffin enjoying prom season. That's all I got to say about that. Man, it's good times. What a world we live in the SEC. What we had done without social media, back in the day. But imagine how hard it'd been covering recruiting back in the 50s and 60s over there. I mean, all that kind of stuff, like just craziness. You couldn't do it, man.
The state of Mississippi is insane. You got Lane and the Pirate over there. I mean, that's just the best.
Yeah, Mike Leach getting interviewed by Brandon Walker in his office from Barstool now. I mean, just craziness over there. So it's very interesting. Juice 25, is it Arch or bust at QB now? Guys, I really don't I do not, Christopher Vizina was a guy that they had looked at. He ends up going to Clemson. They kind of kicked the tires there. Dante Moore is a guy that they've been on. I think he's Notre Dame bound. I just don't know who would be out there. And the question is, if you don't get Arch Manning, is it okay? We're going to take a guy who was way down our board, if from Georgia's point of view, or do you let this season play out and then maybe go to the portal to get an experienced guy for next year, that kind of deal? I mean, Trent, what are your thoughts on that?
I think this is a great class to go big on, because you got some talented guys on campus, as you saw at the spring game. You got four quarterbacks on campus that I think you could put, not with full confidence, but you could put at least 3 of them, maybe 4 of them on the field this fall and have some confidence that you're going to win games. I think this is a year that you can go all in on that top guy. And if you miss, it's okay. You move on to 24. Or there might be another 23 guy that kind of explodes on the scene late. But I think this is a good year for that to happen, because it's not necessarily a dire need for Georgia in this class.
So, yes, it's Arch or bust is what you're saying.
I mean, I'm not saying they won't take another quarterback in this class, but I don't think it is going to be, a life or death situation if he doesn't, if he chooses elsewhere. I don't think Georgia's just going to hurt at that position. I think they'll go on, move on to 24, and try to land one of the top guys in that class. They might take, try to take a high upside guy in the 23 class that's maybe lower ranked, maybe a scrambler type or something like that. But I think they're going to be fine either way. But I think it's Arch or bust. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. All right. Biage 0702. Jed, got a question here.
Yeah. Who is the next commit to go public?
Amarius Mims.
Amarius Mims commit. Trent wins. Ding, ding, ding. Winner. All right, Jed. What do you think? Who's you? I think we had talked about this before the show. You brought up somebody that's got a commitment date.
There's you look at 2 guys. One, you look at Justyn Rhett, who was obviously on campus on an official, decommitted from Notre Dame while in Athens. He doesn't have a date set. It's not even necessarily we don't know that he's committing to Georgia, but you put the dominoes together. Seems like Georgia's in strong position there. And then Tamarian Parker, who's a guy Georgia's led for a while, he is committing like mid-May-ish, right when they end spring ball over at Central in Phoenix City. So that's a month away basically. So I think if nothing else, I think Georgia's still in a strong position there. So that could be it. It won't be any. If nothing else before then, I think that's a day you look at as a guy Georgia gets might jump on board.
Is he going to be at Rivals Atlanta?
That is a good question. I don't know. I can ask him.
Because it would fall right after his commitment.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a good question. I'll text him and ask him. Possibly.
Yeah, so we'll have that covered. We'll have some camps coming up, have some good things like that. But guys, we've covered all the details from the G Day that was. Had some younger guys there too, but we wanted to focus mostly on the class of 2023 this time around. A lot of Arch Manning talk, which is always good stuff. If I was smart, I would have a long time ago made some T-shirts or something that says what's Arch doing or is Arch gone yet or something like that. Some kind of slogan that you put out there, because that's what people every day, that every single decision in college football right now seems to be, okay, how does this affect Arch Manning? And people even saying that now that Ohio State seems to have risen as a heavy contender, maybe a favorite for Dylan Raiola in the class of 2024, was like, what? Oh, does that mean because he was big on Georgia before, does that mean that Georgia has gained ground with Arch? He knows Arch is going to Georgia, so Dylan Raiola is going elsewhere. Who knows? It's lots of different ways to look at all this stuff.
It's the reason why I love recruiting. Everybody talks about Arch. 95% of everybody that talks about Arch has never even seen his film.
Yeah.
So, that's why I love recruiting.
Absolutely. Well, you're going to see some of these guys that are in the NFL draft coverage out here talking about guys that they've never watched their 100%. Games before. So it's fake it until you make it. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you go with it. But
it's just Manning's name that carries on a lot of this optimism, with all these fan bases.
No doubt. But guys, that is UGA Sports Recruiting Rumors versus Facts. I'm Blaine Gilmer for Jed May and Trent Smallwood. We will catch you next Monday night. Be on the lookout for the podcast version tomorrow, and we'll see you next Monday.